She was just 10 years old when a deranged loner snatched her off the street. Natascha Kampusch was held captive in the cellar of a suburban house in Vienna, purpose-built by her kidnapper. She suffered 8 years of physical and mental abuse at the hands of Wolfgang Pricklepil, a computer technician, before making a daring escape. Now, in a bizarre twist in this story, Natascha has become the proud owner of the House of Horrors, where she was imprisoned. Here's Rani Sadler.
Natascha Kampusch is taking me to the house where she was held captive for 3,096 days.
Die österreichischen Behörden, Natascha Kampusch.
How are you feeling now that we are headed back to the house?
I think it's not easy to go there.
The first time Natascha came here, she was 10 years old, in the back of a kidnapper's van. Now 28, she's taking me inside her House of Horrors.
Are you feeling okay coming in here?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm also. Me too.
It's been a long journey for you.
Yes.
It's been 10 years.
Yes. Now, here is the living room.
It's bizarre enough being in this house with Natascha. Even stranger, she now owns it after inheriting it from the estate of her kidnapper.
So is going back for you, in some ways, therapy?
Yes, you can say it's in a special way, you can say that.
This is the house of Wolfgang Pricklepil, an unmarried IT specialist who kept an immaculate facade. For 8.5 years, Natascha was hidden inside, where she was relentlessly abused and kept as a slave.
He needed the house to be clean all the time.
Yes, it was very important for him.
And who did the cleaning?
Me. I was under his thumb, and now I'm not.
March 2nd, 1998 didn't start out like most days for 10-year-old Natascha. Her mother usually drove her to school, but because they'd had a fight, Natascha decided to walk alone. As she headed towards her school, a monster blocked her path.
He grabbed me and threw me through the open door into his delivery van. The whole thing had only taken a few seconds. I was well aware of the fact that I had been kidnapped and that I would probably die. I'm gonna show you this. Underneath was the dungeon.
Pricklepil had planned this moment for a long, long time. Over years, he'd painstakingly dug out an inescapable dungeon deep below his house. Down the cellar stairs, covered by heavy tyres and a cupboard, behind a safe and then a wall half a metre thick, and a door weighing 150 kilograms, to the 5 square metre cell that would be Natascha's prison.
Did you think you were going to die in that cellar?
Sometimes I thought that, and I made an agreement with myself to cope with this thought.
During a nationwide search, police received a tip-off about a man with a white van and an unhealthy interest in young girls. While Natascha lay imprisoned under the house, investigators came over to interview Wolfgang Pricklepil, who charmed them into believing he had nothing to do with her disappearance.
He had 2 parts in his personality. I call the one part the dark side and the other part the bright side, and it was like schizophrenic personality, maybe.
What were the two different sides?
I think one part was the part of the outside, the part of the handsome person, the brave son, and the dark side. He were a brutal person with no conscience.
Natascha never knew when Prickler Pill would come for her. In her dungeon, alone for days on end, she developed psychological techniques which allowed her to survive.
What was the secret to your survival all those years?
I think I had this kind of hope and I had this kind of strength in it. And it helped me a lot. It was very important to me to have this inner strength and the hope and the belief that I will survive.
Eventually, Prickler Pill began keeping Natascha upstairs, where he forced her to sleep in his bed.
He would actually attach you to him all day.
Sometimes because he don't want me to get out of this house.
During the day, he used her as a domestic slave
This is the kitchen.
and withheld food as punishment.
He also didn't feed you so you would not be strong enough to run away.
Yes, that was the idea. He gave me 1 carrot or something for 2 days or more. And then I had to go back in the darkness.
You feared that if something happened to him, you would just be like one of the mummies in Egypt.
Yes, and there were no exit for me.
So if something happened to him,
Don't let me think about it.
it's still very, very difficult for you to think
Yes.
about.
As he abused her, she tried to manipulate him. She feigned love for her captor, and in return, he began making concessions. Under constant watch, Natascha was sometimes allowed out into the garden.
To look above in the sky, in the clouds, to view the plants.
And you would take some of the plants with you.
Yes.
The garden would not only provide emotional salvation for Natascha, it would also give her a means of escape. On August 23rd, 2006, she made her move. Prickler Pill had left the gate unlocked and was distracted for a moment by a phone call, just long enough for Natascha to escape and run to safety. But Wolfgang Prickler Pill was never brought to justice. He committed suicide by throwing himself under a train.
You said nothing is black and white, and while you were the victim and he was the abuser, but you think in some ways he must have been a victim too of something.
Yes, I think a normal man wouldn't be able to do this. I'm sure he had problems and with himself and with his personality, and he was a victim too, I think.
Taking advice from police, she agreed to her first TV interview 2 weeks after her escape.
Umständen entsprechend gut.
But her mental fortitude caused some to doubt her story.
Natascha.
And over the years, those doubts have continued to plague Natascha.
Kampusch.
Wasn't it enough that I was kidnapped? Wasn't it enough? They want a bigger story. I think it's horrible.
How does it make you feel when people don't
Angry.
believe you?
Angry. And it hurts.
And it's this ongoing scrutiny that makes Natascha so protective of her past and so reluctant to sell this house.
People wonder why you would come here, why you would keep it. Why is it important for you?
It's important because I don't want to have the false people in this house.
What do you mean by that? You don't want other people to
I
come
don't
through?
want to have a kind of theme park in here.
A theme park.
Theme park.
You don't want it to become like a theme park.
Yes.
10 years on, she still cleans it from top to bottom. Everything except the dungeon. The council made you fill it in.
Yes, they made me do that.
You did not want to do it?
Not so fast. But in the future, maybe yes.
Why not just burn it down?
I'm looking to sell it. Maybe. But I'm not sure, but I will see.
For Natascha, who's still trying to find out how she fits in the world outside, her former prison is a place of refuge, a place of familiarity.
I have found freedom in myself, and I'm very centered now. Lots of people think that such a crime could never happen to them. But it isn't true.
Natascha's new book about her ordeal and her life since the escape is called 10 Years of Freedom.